actually came from a very stable home. Pastor V, where you come from?
Woo. The opposite. I would say the other thing that was really formative about our financial journey, that it wasn't until I grew older I understood the impact of. And that is that as a child, I was diagnosed with cancer.
Okay.
So I was diagnosed at 10 years old with something called osteogenic sarcoma.
How did you all have the conversation that led you all to get on the same page about money?
Yeah. I'll let you, I'm gonna kind of set you up for this and then I can jump in, but I think you were great about leading us in the conversation. And I think that's really important because I know that we have stereotypical roles a lot of times in culture.
Yes, sir.
But the reality of it is the freedom that we're experiencing today is because I had to learn how to become curious and to desire the wisdom that my wife had to offer. And it's crazy, we will seek wisdom everywhere else but the one that God gave us.
Ooh. How old when you got married?
23.
You're gonna help this generation. This generation of ladies will say, no, that's your debt.
Mm-hmm.
You need to pay that off. This ain't my debt.
All right, fam, 2025 is right around the corner, and I do not want you to go into that year guessing or wondering how that year is going to be. No, I want you to have a strategic plan on what you're going to do going into the year 2025. That is why I am hosting a free workshop on December 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time called Start Stronger, where I'll be giving you the wealth building strategies for the new year. We will dive into proven strategies to crush your consumer debt, build wealth, and create a year you will love. You'll learn how to both plan, prepare, and prosper for the new year with actionable tips to maximize your income and watch this, minimize your expenses, and start building your legacy. Seats are limited, and just for attending, I am going to bless you with the complimentary free 50-page ebook called How to Get a Pay Raise in the Year of 2025. Listen, I don't want you to wait. I want you to register right now. Go to anthonyoneal.com/start strong. Again, that is anthonyoneal.com/start strong, because we're going into 2025 stronger, and we're going to end 2025 better than the way we ended 2024. Bring your boyfriend, bring your girlfriend, bring your husband, bring your wife, and check this out, parents, bring your kids to this free workshop. I'll see you soon.
What's going on, fam? It's your boy, Anthony ONeal. Welcome back to the table. And today we're going to be diving into an issue that's impacting not only, I would say, just the middle class and people like you and I, but it's also impacting pastors and church leaders across the nation, and that's financial challenges. You know, did you know, this is an interesting and startling fact that I found out, that 90% of pastors feel financial stress in their homes, watch this, and in the church. And 50% earn less than $50,000 a year, with many juggling second jobs just to make ends meet. Shockingly, I found out that 33% of pastors have under $10,000 inside of their retirement savings, and 29% have no personal savings at all. But nearly 48% of pastors are driving a luxury car. These are challenges that are not just in the numbers, but these pastors, I think, have some of the bad grammar there. I would say these pastors have their priorities not in the right place. 38% of pastors are considering leaving ministry every single year, with 76% of them knowing others who have left due to financial stress. But y'all, I had an opportunity to go down to Richmond, Virginia, as I'm back in school, and I had the great opportunity to speak at a great church out there. I think it's the leading church in that area. It is called the Life Church, who's being led by Pastors Vernon and Ashley Gordon. And man, when I walked into that room, they had over 500 people signed up to do a 5-hour workshop, and they were in there dialed in. And then we had 3 services, and 2 of them jam-packed, and the 3rd service was not jam-packed, but it was full. But the good news is financial freedom is possible, and even in ministry. And today I had the honor of having my brother and my sister at the table, and I'm excited because, y'all, these are individuals who are not just preaching the gospel, but they're practicing the gospel. These are individuals who are not wealthy. They didn't get $1 million passed down to them, but they're building wealth. These are people, everyday people, who had a calling, who was drowning in debt and said, hey, we're going to get on a vision and we're going to get out of debt and we're going to build a church of wealthy people too. This couple paid off over $100,000 in debt. And we're going to dive into deep on how did they do it? Why did they do it? Because there's nothing extraordinary, special. Well, no. They are special people, but they don't have an advantage over anyone else, you know? And so we're going to dive in deep on how they were able to do that. But before we get to my brother and sister, don't forget, you guys, hit that subscribe button, okay? Join this family. We are almost at 1 million E3 community members. We're focusing on 3 areas. How do we expand in abundance, wellness, and freedom? And so if you want to expand in those areas, hit that subscribe button. Go on ahead and hit that thumbs up button if you like today's show. And if this is your pastor, because I know how y'all roll over there at the Life Church, make sure y'all share this so the world can see the amazing story and testimony of your amazing leaders. So y'all, let's get to it. Bro, sis.
Hey.
What's good?
What's up? Man, welcome to, well, I will say welcome to the DMV, but y'all even just planted a church here in the DMV.
We do. We have a campus up here. Yep.
I do have a campus, so I can't say welcome like I ain't never been here before. Right? You know, but man, I want to dive straight into it because I was just impressed by the things that I saw when I came to the church, and then really learning more of y'all's story on Saturday morning. How long have y'all been married?
13 years.
13 years.
13 years.
13.
And then if I'm not mistaken, 13 years, 2 kids.
Two kids.
2 kids.
10 and 9.
10 and 9. One of them just had a birthday recently.
Yep, on Sunday.
Yep. And I was like, yo, man, and he's smart too. That man's smart.
He is.
I was like, okay, I can tell who your daddy is. I already know who you are. You know, so 13 years of marriage. When you all got married, I want to talk about, I'm going to start with you, Ashley.
Okay.
What was your upbringing when it came to money? So like when you first met him, what was your eyesight and thoughts around money?
So I grew up in a household that was stable.
Okay.
So it was always stability. So if we had money, I wouldn't have known that we had a lot of money because everything was just like security. It was mild. It was, we're not doing too much.
Right.
So I didn't grow up like my friends buying all the Jordans, standing in the lines for the clothes and all of that. It was all about, we live in a modest house, a rancher.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
My dad drove an Oldsmobile. Sometimes I would like duck pulling up places. But it was structured. Now, we didn't talk a lot about finances. Everything was assumed.
Okay.
It was assumed that we're good.
Okay.
We don't need to go any further.
Yeah.
But our light's not off.
Okay. Did y'all ever have a struggle season from what you can remember?
Not that I know of.
Wow. So your parents were very good at making sure that you had the necessities. And would you say you had all of your necessities and some of your wants, or did you just have necessities and not really a lot of my wants?
I think I had all of my wants, but my parents taught me early on, I would say like around 10 years old, even when it came to Christmas, they would give me $100 and say, you do what you can do with it.
Wow.
So I was looking in the J.C. Penney's catalog book, trying to figure out how many jeans I could buy, how many shirts I could buy, very early on.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts. I love it. All right. So Ashley came from a very stable home. Pastor V, where you come from?
Woo.
The opposite. No, man, it was a lot of ups and downs, a lot of twists and turns with our family financial infrastructure. I would say 2 kind of primary things kind of probably infused our financial reality. Number 1 is, my father and my mother both had, good jobs, but those jobs had seasonal expectations. So my dad started off as a Marine. Okay. And then when he came out of the military, he worked in the police force. Okay. Then he went into Ford Motors, and then that plant shut down. And so but one thing I respected about my father is even when he'd step into a whole new world, he was very adamant about work ethic.
Yeah.
So I remember times when, the plant shut down and he would be in between jobs, he would still be waking up at 7 every morning. And whether he had to wash cars or do whatever, he was always somebody who was like, I'm going to do what's necessary to provide.
Love it.
But our financial landscape changed. They also separated several times throughout the course our childhood. And so as they kind of went through those seasons, you know, our financial reality would change. We would go from being in a 2-parent home to being in a single-parent home. And while I'm very grateful they were both very active in our lives, it just, our financial landscape was very, you know, fluid in that way.
Wow.
So that was kind of me. Stability for her. Our family, now it might not have shown up in clothes, but we was going to have parties and get-togethers. You would have thought we had money the way we threw cookouts. Right. You'd be like, oh, we got money. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that was that. I would say the other thing that was really formative about our financial journey, that it wasn't until I grew older I understood the impact of. And that is that as a child, I was diagnosed with cancer.
Okay.
So I was diagnosed at 10 years old with something called osteogenic sarcoma. It's an aggressive form of bone cancer. Had 2 tumors, ended up having 14 surgeries. I've had 3 years of chemotherapy, told I was died 3 times. And so from ages 10 to 22, I had surgery almost every year. And I didn't understand at the time the type of financial impact that had on our family.
Wow.
I remember our home church throwing parades and fundraisers to help the dying kid, right? Pay the medical bills, but had no context at 10, 11, and 12 just how significant that medical crisis had influenced our parents' financial reality. So in many ways, as I've grown older, I've grown more admirable of their resilience. And the fact that they didn't make me feel that. I never felt guilty. I never felt shame.
Wow.
They made sure that we understood that mommy and daddy are here to see you live a long life. And that's the only thing you need to focus on. So so those were some of the things that kind of infused our journey, and it was up and down. But we definitely threw a little good cookout, though. If you want a good cookout, Ayo, you need to come hang out.
Hey, man, listen, I get that. And isn't that funny how our parents, because I had the same thing. It's like I experienced the same thing. I never felt the financial hurt because mom and daddy always made sure we were going to be good. But as I got older, I could look back and say, man, we were hurting.
Sure.
Like, wow.
I walked in the house before and the cable be off. And you'd be like, I thought I was going to watch 106 in Park. We've seen ourselves have to eat, you know, the struggle meals.
Bro.
You know, and so that was real. Now, she eats the struggle meals because she just created a budget.
Yeah.
We did because of necessity.
I love that. I mean, I've been there, man. The reason why I think I love breakfast food so much today is because we had breakfast food for dinner.
Yes, sir.
It was bread, milk. We always had bread, milk, and eggs in the refrigerator.
Sure.
That's French toast.
Fancy.
So I can eat French toast any time of the day, and I will be happy. And it's amazing how something that was turned into a struggle has just become a part of life. And we value that. So when you two meet, you come from not the struggle, but the standard, typical life. You come from this life. How was that dynamic as a couple while y'all were dating? Did y'all ever have a serious money conversation while y'all were dating?
We had a serious conversation going into marriage.
Okay.
So we started dating when we were 16. Okay. So we've had a lot of history together. But the serious conversations was when it started to come out like, oh, we're different.
Wow.
It was like checking credit scores and finding things on his credit report that he didn't know prior to us getting married. And I came in with a thought of like, okay, I know how much money you bring into this, how much this is what we should do. And I think at that stage, Vernon was very much so like, whatever works. Not knowing the cost that it was gonna take, the discipline that was necessary. And then I think when we got married, that's when it was like, oh, we're different. And for years, I think it felt like our differences were deficiencies. Because we were just so different. And it's different now, years later, but those first couple of years,
my God,
financially was hard.
That finance conversation for us was by far the hardest conversation and the hardest topic for us to overcome.
So let's talk about that, because I think one of the things that I'm really trying to do, and you all know this, is help single people have the wealthy conversation earlier on in the conversation. So with you all not having that conversation earlier on in the conversation, but now you're forced to have it in marriage, what were some of those conversations like? Like, how did y'all get to where you all are today? Because y'all came into the marriage with debt?
Yes.
And I want to guess it's student loan debt, stuff like that. Right. And then you're thinking one way about finances. You're thinking another way. How did you all have the conversation that led you all to get on the same page about money?
Yeah. I'll let you, I'm gonna kind of set you up for this and then I can jump in, but I think you were great about leading us in the conversation. And I think that's really important because I know that we have stereotypical roles a lot of times in culture.
Yes, sir.
But the reality of it is the freedom that we're experiencing today is because I had to learn how to become curious and to desire the wisdom that my wife had to offer. I think just because God had given me an opportunity to have vision for our family didn't mean I had competency about finances.
Ooh,
right?
That's good.
So I had to learn to appreciate, to her point, not to see her difference as a deficiency.
Yeah.
I used to be like, she don't want me to have no fun. And that's her deficiency.
And normally that's her.
Right. Right.
But you were like,
no, I was me. It was me. And here's what I would tell anybody. I think whatever your barrier is to financial discipline, you need to find out what is the source beyond what you see. For me, as the kid who grew up having cancer, and I did not recognize that really what was happening to me is I did not ever think I'd live long. So I felt like if I don't live now, I'm gonna miss out on living. And for a lot of people, cancer may not be that story, maybe a different story, but there's something that's driving your lack of discipline.
Yeah.
And it took, me starting to step back, one, understand, okay, I'm gonna live long, I don't have to do it all now. And then to value, man, God has blessed me with a woman who has the financial competency, and it doesn't diminish what I bring to the table to remain curious. And it's crazy, we will seek wisdom everywhere else but the one that God gave us.
Ooh.
So I was like, before I listen to a podcast and before I listen to this, let me find out what my wife has to offer because she is gifted in this. And so you kind of started to lead us into those conversations and kind of take us through a baseline plan, and you probably can share that better than I can.
Yeah, and I had to come into that conversation very much so, still humble.
Okay.
Because truth be told, like Vernon's debt was a lot more than what I was bringing. I had debt, but Vernon's was a lot more.
Okay.
And so when we got to the conversation, it was like, this is no longer Vernon's debt. This is our debt.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're working together as a team. I can't hold this above his head and walk in resentment of like, I mean, what happened? What in the world? We're here now.
Facts.
And it's a we thing. So we came into covenant together, and it's our debt, so we're going to tackle this together.
So pause, action. Pause. How old when we got married?
23.
You're going to help this generation. This generation of ladies will say, no, that's your debt. You need to pay that off. This ain't my debt. What, how do I answer this question? Because I don't want to offend nobody who's watching this show. I want to help them, not offend them. What was going through your head that made you approach your husband, per what we believe, who is the head of the house, right? And you say, no, this is us. Yeah. I love you. This is ours. I didn't bring, like you didn't belittle him. You didn't bring him down. You didn't make him feel less than. You made him feel like, yo, I'm your wife when we end this thing together. At 23, how were you thinking like that?
Yeah. I'll be honest, like it was a conversation that I had to have with myself. It wasn't like let's just, we got this. Yeah, we're a team.
Yeah.
No, it took a time for me to sit back and say like, hey, this is the love of my life. This is the one that I decided that God placed in my life for us to be one with each other. Our values align with each other. How we get there may be different, but our values are the same, and we're a team. And so we're never going to accomplish this goal if I go in thinking it's his. Like, it's just not gonna work. And then we're gonna be frustrated. And then our kids and their kids, they'll be the ones that suffer because of that.
Yeah.
And so it was a place of humility of like, hey, we're in this together.
Okay.
And I think I saw that even early on with my parents. Once again, I didn't know what their financial landscape was, but I saw them together.
Yeah.
There was a togetherness about them, and I said, that's something I want.
Okay.
They didn't talk a lot about anything, but I always saw them as together, and I said, if this is the love of my life, I want this for us. I don't want us to get to the top, and he said, this is what I did, or this is what from my end, this is what I did. No, we did this together.
Yep.
When she brought up the money conversations as a man, speaking to the men who are watching right now, how was your pride?
really challenged.
Yeah.
And just for the context of the listeners, I know you alluded to it in the introduction, but we paid off $150,000 of debt.
Yeah.
Came debt-free in 2020.
Yeah. During the pandemic.
During the pandemic.
And we did that both making, at the time, less than $100,000 a year.
So combined household income was less than 100,000, or were you making less than 100,000? She making less than 100,000. What was
He was
combined?
making less than 100. I was making less than 100.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And so I think I want somebody to hear that, because when it's possible.
So good, yes.
Like, I think people think I got to be making this a certain amount of money. It was extreme discipline, but the pride piece comes in because the only way it's possible is with a plan
Yep.
Yeah.
and with accountability.
Yes.
So she would bring spreadsheets to the table, and she would bring bank statements to the table because she's an accountant by profession. That's what she went to school for, and then she served in external audit and internal audit in the corporate sector. And I would be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
For real.
And here's where the insecurity would step in, because I didn't have the vocabulary, I didn't have the language
Got it.
when we came into the relationship. Now, that has evolved over the years, and I'm sure we can talk about how that journey has unfolded.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of insecurity. But here's what I would encourage anybody on. Brene Brown says this. She says, for shame to grow, because really what it is shame. Right? The reason we hide finances is because of shame. The reason why we avoid those hard conversations is because of shame.
Facts.
And Brene Brown says, for shame to grow, it needs three things: secrecy, silence, and judgment. So I would say, one, you got to overcome secrecy. That's a personal decision.
Yep.
We had to overcome silence. That's a shared decision.
Yep.
And she had to work hard not to judge me
Facts.
Sure.
for what I needed to grow in learning.
Facts.
That was her decision. When those three things come together, you can overcome it. But I think that was the key to it all.
Secrecy. Well, we know you couldn't be secret in a marriage. You can be secret in a marriage?
Woo!
With finances?
Yeah.
It's a little bit difficult with me.
Yeah.
I was about to say, with me, you can't.
What? I married,
Me and you,
yeah.
we got it. You know what I'm saying? Hold up, woman, wait.
I married an auditor. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
I can't even surprise my wife. True story. I've had to literally ask friends, like good friends, like, I ain't putting nobody in no financial line.
Yeah, they're like, hey, yo,
But I'd be like, hey,
throw me
I'm gonna need you
$1,000.
to front this.
Yeah.
Because I am married to somebody who is not, she's gonna be
gonna
like,
see it?
I know that something's off.
Yeah. But there were times when you talk about secrecy, there were times that you used the credit card
Yeah.
and didn't tell me about it. So that's secret. Now, I then go back and look, and I'm asking the questions like, hey, is this a fraudulent charge? Or like, what happened here? Do I need to call the
Because he
bank?
tell you.
Yes.
You're like, wait, we didn't have this conversation.
Yeah.
I see this chart. So I'm not
Yeah.
gonna say it's you.
Right.
Yeah.
I might need to call the bank.
I'm assuming something's wrong. Because this purchase wasn't a part of the plan. Well, something must be off. I think those are the things that we really learned over the years.
Yes, sir.
And here's what I would say that she was so generous with, was we had to come to the table, and I had to come with a posture to learn.
Yeah.
So that's what helped me overcome pride. The question was not, do I want to be the man of the household? It was, do I want to, and she said it earlier, do I want to set up generation after generation in our family for success? And if I want that, then I want to grow in wisdom, and we partnered in that. And certainly I had to take accountability for my learning as well.
Yeah.
So that was important. Like, I did then win and learn. Like, I think, I remember when she first came, we had an apartment that was 2 bedrooms,
Yeah.
2 full baths. And I was like, hey, I'm ready to, like, this was the house. We had a pool, but it was a neighborhood pool. And we had a passcode to get in the gate. So I thought we lived in a gated community based on my upbringing. And then one year in our marriage, she says, hey, I think we should buy a house. And I remember being upset. Like, you're trying to take me away from this wonderful establishment. So she led the efforts in buying our first home. By the time we came around to our second home, really,
It was you.
I kind of led the charge, because over the years, and so that's what I would even say to a woman who's having conversations, just because the man you're with does not come with all the competency, if he has a posture and a willingness, right, to be a partner with you, that can certainly, those tables can turn.
So I want to thank you both for helping us out, because I think there's a lot of married people watching this right now, and specifically, I can say specifically one side, because I think a lot of ladies would be like, yeah, no, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of men were like, oh, I would feel horrible that my finances wasn't in a place to where that was pleasing to her.
Yep.
Because most men in this generation were identified by the finances.
Absolutely.
Right? And so the fact that you were saying, hey, you know what? I could still be the man of my home, but I'm going to submit to her for a season so that way I could learn and be better for our family. When did the conversation come up about eliminating the debt?
Yeah, we were well into our marriage. I think we were maybe 3 years into our marriage. Yeah. And we were paying the minimum payments on all our debt, which was a lot. We had mortgage, our daycare bill, and then it was debt right behind that. They were all three very, very similar. That's how much debt, when you talk about $150,000, it's up there. Wow. So we were paying the minimum payments and we're like, yeah, we're good. And then we got to a point where we were leading a church. And for me, I was like, I don't feel comfortable leading a church and asking as far as giving, teaching on giving, if we're not living that same lifestyle. I feel like a hypocrite. Yeah. I think I also thought about our kids. I did not want to be paying student loan debt by the time they got to school. We're not both going to be paying for school. So that was one of the things. So we sat down and really wanted to attack the debt for real. Yep. And we always talk about the fact that like you can't attack a giant if you're not willing to face it. Yep. And so we had to come up with the numbers. What is it going to take for us to really get rid of this in an accelerated way? Because we could have paid off our debt in maybe 40 years by the time we were close to our grave. Right. But like, how do we want to build out the margin and just live a life of debt freedom? And another scripture that comes to mind when we were just going through that journey, there's a scripture in Galatians 5 that talks about like, whom some sets free is free indeed. But the next part of that says, and the goal is to stay free. It's not just to be free and then to go back. Facts. And so for us both, I think we did not want to live a life of bondage. It felt like a burden on our backs. That we could be helping people live a life of freedom and being restored and being transformed, but then to go home as we're leading this church and be bound in the area of finances. Wow. And so for us, it was kind of like no more. So we decided we were going to go through a financial class with our church. Wow. We weren't going to lead it. We were going to sit in the class with those who wanted to participate in the class to help us walk through this debt freedom journey.
Yep. And I'm pretty sure that set such a great example for your church during that time. To see their pastors sitting in the class with them, learning and working the process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the other thing you started to do is introduce practical things, like just for somebody who might be saying, well, how do you do that? I mean, you introduce zero-based budget to our planning. You introduced the debt snowball effect to our planning, and so we have margin and then we take it and, we dump it into our debt. Wow. Whenever I would you speak specifically about ministry sometimes affords us the opportunity for additional, opportunities, whether it's preaching or, leading in some context. And so anytime we got something extra, right? Bonuses from work.
Thank you so much.
Legit.
So you will get it and give it, hey, babe, I got extra, here you go.
Yeah. Wow. And here's the thing I would say, because somebody probably heard that, and as soon as you said that, they was like, see, I'm grown.
That's what I'm saying.
But here's the thing, I would say that, again, a healthy couple, I think, understands this, and this is what I would say from the man's point of view. Just because I didn't have all the competency doesn't mean I didn't have vision.
Yes.
You are still responsible to have vision for your family.
Facts.
Even if you don't have all the answers.
Facts.
And so I think we had just learned early on, like, man, we a team. It's crazy. We all would probably say Jordan was a great athlete, but it wasn't until he got Pippen and Rodman that the team was unbeatable. Unbeatable. And all I'm saying is, take that same approach to your relationship. Facts, man. Right? Are we an unbeatable team when we can lean on each other's giftedness? Yeah. And so, we would do that. So the zero-based budget, debt snowball, taking extra income, dumping it into those things.
And then the balance of the extra, because I will say early on, every check, I was like, yes, come over here, we can do it. But later on, it was kind of like, hey, we've been doing so good. We've been able to pay this off. Let's use this extra for something for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's not necessarily take a break from the whole journey itself, but maybe all of it doesn't need to go to the debt.
Okay.
Maybe some of it is, let's celebrate the milestone that we're doing this
Yes.
and we're in this together. I think that was important for us,
Okay.
the celebration, because truth be told, if it was up to me alone, I would have taken everything
Right.
and put it towards the debt.
Yeah.
Because I am a black and white person. If this is the goal,
Nice.
let's do the goal by all means necessary. But being married, once again, it wasn't my thing anymore. It was our thing. And so I knew that there were times where it was like, okay, we need a little staycation. We need to go out to eat. He needed to see that we were making progress. And he needed to see that, like, I had to understand, like, this wasn't his background. Like, you get a check and it's like, let's have a party.
Yeah.
You know, let's have a cookout, let's do it. And for him to be humble enough to say, like, no, I get where we're going. I then had to return the favor almost, or the gesture of like, okay, we're in this together. I know what he needs right now. And right now he needs us to take some of this check to do this.
Yep.
And it was a give and take that I think began to be healthy. It was not healthy in the beginning.
Yeah. I would say that the thing that I started to recognize was that many times, I think in financial freedom journeys, we only know how to celebrate when we get to the milestone.
Mm-hmm.
And so until we get there, we feel defeated. And I think that can be overwhelming. I think what we had to learn was there are things to celebrate, not just when we get to the milestone, but when we get to the mile markers.
Come on, man.
So we started to list out, what are the mile markers?
Yes.
Oh man, if we get here, we paid off this small debt. Boom, look at that. Hey, let's take a little bit of this and what we were dumping, and let's go grab this dinner, and we'll eat at the nice restaurant, and we will celebrate
Absolutely.
the mile marker on the way to the milestone. And I think that was huge to our journey.
I think it's needed. When I was paying off my debt, I used my former boss's method, and it worked for me. But I would definitely say I was stressed. I would definitely say I got tired. I felt like quitting a lot of times.
Yeah.
And sometimes I paused
Yeah.
because I was like, man, I can't enjoy life.
Yeah.
I can't go out with my friends. I can't do this. You want me to eat beans and rice. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, bro. And so I think that, and I did it, right? I mean, and I got out of debt, and it worked tremendously for me. But I do believe that people need to celebrate those mile markers.
Yes.
And because it's like, if you pay off your first credit card, that is a huge,
It's huge.
win.
It's huge.
Yeah.
You know, if you pay off your car, that is a massive win.
Yes.
Because I don't think what people understand, when you pay off the car, when you pay off the credit cards, it's not just you don't have any debt, but now you're done paying out interest.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now you have money staying in
Yeah.
that was going out. Go and celebrate that.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because now it's like, wait a minute, you're creating more margin
Yeah.
to go towards yourself and towards your family.
Yep.
And so I think I totally agree with that. I was signing my book out there in y'all's lobby, and a young lady came up to me and she leaned in and she said, can I ask you, can I tell you something in your ear? And I was like, please don't flirt with me. I was like, please, not right now. I gotta preach another sermon. Let me go. I've been good all day. I said, yeah, go ahead. And she leaned in and she started crying.
Yep.
And she said, Ayo, I'm still in debt, but I just saved my first $1,000.
Wow.
And she was crying. And I said, hey, wipe those tears. Celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the people that were standing in line, I said, yo, she just saved $1,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they were clapping
Yeah.
for her and everything. I was like, yeah, you gotta celebrate that.
Yep.
Because 60% of people in America can't
Don't have it.
afford a $1,000 emergency
Absolutely.
without it going on a credit card. You got it cash. You gotta celebrate
Got
that.
to.
And I think we have to get used to celebrating.
Yep.
And I just love that. What was the hardest thing for y'all getting out of debt? As a family, like, what was just the hardest thing to all right, when did y'all start? Let me ask you that question. So you paid it off in 2020.
Yeah.
What year did y'all start?
We started 2016.
So 4 years, which is, okay, pretty decent. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Right? Throughout those 4 years, what was the hardest thing? Y'all ever get into any money disagreements or money arguments?
Yeah.
Which one was it? Arguments, disagreements?
Is there an option for all of the above?
All of the above. I think the first time we certainly got into arguments, but there was an argument that I cried. And it was the first time that I had cried in an argument ever.
For real?
And it made him even more mad because he was like, out of all the arguments you had,
This is gonna be about money.
This the one? What? Yeah.
I think
What?
we hit a really rough patch probably when I was pregnant.
Yeah. No.
I don't know all the details of it, but it was rough. It was to the point where we had good friends that knew, and they were not on a debt freedom journey, but they knew about ours.
Okay.
And they knew how bad it was. They took a trip, a 2-hour trip up to see us.
Wow.
Came to our house, cooked for us, and set us down and say, hey, y'all got to figure this out.
Yeah.
It won't even, they were like, we don't even have the answers.
Yeah.
But what we're going to make sure is y'all got to figure this out.
Yeah.
We're going to cook for y'all. Y'all can have this space to have the conversation, but.
And I think that speaks
figure it
to
out.
the point you asked, what was the hardest part? I think that probably is summed up in what nobody prepares you for is that life changes. And how do you keep the same goal when you have to be flexible in the way you approach it? You know, we're starting to have kids, and then you just have more excuses.
Yes. Yes.
Right? That's really what they become.
Yeah.
To not focus on it. Or, you know, or you get new opportunities, you get into new networks. And you're like, man, I have more reasons to be like, well, we gotta go here, we gotta do this. And I think all of that you talked about it like earlier, like sometimes, you get into communities where it's like, well, now we have to look apart.
Yep. Yep.
And so then what starts to happen is you start to live your life based on trying to fit into a context as opposed to trying to accomplish the goal that you set out to accomplish. And so I think like part of it is you can't set, it's not cruise control. You don't set it.
Facts.
And then you say, I'm gonna arrive.
Facts.
And I think that was part of what we had to learn over the years is that we got to keep coming back to this conversation.
Yeah.
So one of the things we used to have is we used to have a Thursday talk time. This is when Scandal was like the show.
Yes.
We talk at 9. I think we talked at 8.
before.
And then the show came on at 9.
Yep.
And
Well,
that was
a
our
hard
time.
conversation, but Scandal got y'all back into it.
It got us back into to intimacy, yeah. I think so thank you, Olivia Pope. But I think that rhythm, but here's the key. We had to set the time, protect the time, and then we connected the time to something that also fed other parts of our marriage,
Come on.
right? I think that was the strategy.
Okay.
Hey, we still have something to look forward to other than just this. And so I think that was really important. The only other thing I would say that I think was probably one of the hardest things, and this goes back to even I think where we're at now and as pastors and as leaders, is really making sure that we came together with a shared understanding of not just where we want to go. I believe most people have the same values. Most people, if you ask them, do they want to be debt-free, they'll say yes.
Facts.
Most people, if you ask them, do they want to be able to take the vacation of their dreams, they say yes.
Facts.
Most people say, if you want to be able to pay for your kids to go to college, they say yes. What we had to work through is the strategy to how we plan to get there and what are the non-negotiables that will make us feel like we're still valued as individuals on the journey. Yeah.
So as a couple, how did y'all get to that strategy then? Because that is, you all are absolutely right. Every married couple that I talk with, I want to be debt free. But then one would be like, yeah, but I still want to buy the car.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or other one, yeah, and I still want to buy this. But it's like, well, you just say you want to be debt free. But then now both of y'all are saying, I want to do this, I want to do that, but neither one of those things are pointing towards what you all said that you would do. So I'm curious, what are some practical things, Ashley, you would say from the woman's side? I would love to get Pastor V from your side. What would y'all say we should do? Well, pause. Let's go to single people. You all had the arguments. You all had the rough stuff in the beginning of the marriage without talking about marriage. Talk to me, single man. What are some conversations we should be having while we're single that will help once we get married? What would you say? Like if you could do it all over again, what would you ask your husband when y'all were 18, 19, about money?
Yeah. I would have asked, where does he see himself? Or where does he see his family going? Because I think for me, at such a young age, it wasn't necessarily that it had to be one way or the other. But I did want to know, where did he want to end up? And where did we could figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
But like, where do you want to end up?
Yeah.
I probably would have asked more questions about his spending habits.
Okay.
Once again, I don't know if I would have disregarded him because of his spending habits, but it would have been a topic of conversation earlier on.
Yeah.
And then also, I think, what are you willing to sacrifice? Is a question, and we don't always know the answer to that, but I think in dating, when you have someone that can communicate like, hey, like, this is what I see in the future and this is what I'm willing to sacrifice, you get an understanding of like how flexible that muscle of sacrifice is.
Yes.
And I think that is necessary. As much as Vernon's history was not about finances, I saw how much he was willing to sacrifice to get to the goal.
Wow.
The discipline he was willing to have to get to the goal.
Right.
Now, were there times we had to remind him of the goal? Absolutely. But I knew what he wanted, not just for me, not just for us, but for our kids. So the sacrifice, that flexibility, that the muscle of sacrifice, I think I would have asked, hey, what are you willing to sacrifice?
That's so good.
That's really good.
From a man's perspective, what would you have?
I mean, I'll just dovetail on this last part and just say, inspecting habits, not hopes.
Yes.
I think we have a lot of conversations in dating about people's hopes. I hope one day we do this. I hope one day we do this. Do you have, to your point, habits that are congruent with your hopes?
That's so good.
And even if you don't have the amount of money you will one day make, what are you doing currently with your money?
Yeah.
But not just your money, what are you doing with your health?
Yes.
Because again, from my personal vantage point, bad health is gonna cost us more.
Facts.
Right? What are you doing with relationships? If you are not a person if you change friends every 10 days, that means you are somebody who doesn't have the capacity for accountability and doesn't have the desire for wisdom. So now I know your habits reflect a person who, even if we want to grow, I think one of the things that, again, I came in with was a hunger to learn.
Absolutely.
That I'm like, I don't have to know it all, but I'm ready to learn as much as I can. So I think, man, as a man, I think the biggest thing you want to be asking is like, what are the habits that I see? And don't lie to yourself with what you see. We lie to ourselves more than anybody.
Facts.
Right? See what you see and name what you see.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I would say that is really important is asking the question, what value system do people build their life off of? When I say value system, I think for us, of course, there's a kingdom value system, which I think, when we think about scripture, like scripture is very clear about money. There are over 2,000 biblical references about money and possessions. And Jesus is, out of 39 parables, 11 of them deal with money and possessions. So it is impossible to have a spiritual worldview and not have a money perspective that is infused by a kingdom one. Right? You managing money should have a value system that is infused by our faith. And so I think once you start to unpack those things, you start to find out, like, man, people are more influenced by cultural trends than they are, kingdom reality. That's something I would ask. And I think it just really helps set a tone for where you're headed. Because here's what I've come to find, is that money is neutral. It's not good or bad, right? It's not faithful or unfaithful. It takes on the nature of whose hands it's in. So money doesn't change you, it just exposes you. And so I think the questions you should be asking is, what do I need to discover beyond the surface so that I can determine this person's propensity for habits in life in general, not just money. If you can't be faithful in the gym, taking care of your body, you probably won't be faithful with finances. Because you don't do hard things. So money's gonna be a hard thing. And so that's the thing I would just be saying, like, don't lie to yourself about what you see. Like, look for what's beneath the surface.
This is good. I'm loving this conversation. So now I want to ask this question. Now that you all are debt free and you all are on a trajectory of really building a 7-figure portfolio for not just yourself, but for your family. Let's talk about that now in the state of this marriage, right? It's what's happening in a marriage now, right? It's you're leading the church, but both of y'all lead the church. Do you work for the church?
Not right now.
Not right now?
No, I'm home right now.
What do you mean you're home?
I'm home.
Are you home?
I'm home.
Like, you don't work?
I don't work.
How does that feel?
It feels good. It feels good. I will say, like, this is a season that has never been for me. I've always worked.
Wow.
I came out of college
Yeah.
at Ernst & Young, and that was busy, 80 hours a week type of work.
Yeah.
And so this is new for me.
Yeah.
But I'm embracing it. And we've had that conversation of what is going to work for us. For me right now, it was a health thing of like what's going to be the best for me from a restoration standpoint.
Okay.
And we came to that conclusion. We talked about it from a financial perspective.
Okay.
There were some things that even for where we are, we said like, okay, we got to pull back on right now because I'm not working. I was okay with that. He was okay with that. And so it's been good. Is it always going to be like this? No. I do want to do some things probably on the side, some consulting work potentially. But right now I am home and I'm enjoying it.
Man, that's
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
That is just, I just love to see the dynamic, because when you look at you see the fruit of that inside of your church and your ministry. I've been doing this for 12, 13 years, and I'm in churches at least once or twice a month doing workshops. And I see the 200, 300 people, but I've never seen 500, to keep it a buck, yet alone Black people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
In a room, hungry, dialed in. I want the information. I've never seen it before. And I mean, we had so many questions, we couldn't even answer all the questions. So many people were in line afterwards trying to ask me questions, and I had a headache. I was like, I need some heat. And I was like, yo, I don't want to be rude, but I just can't keep answering. Like, y'all's people are hungry. But then when I heard you say, hey, we launched a boot camp, and that you all do 2 of those a year. So you're not just teaching a money series and then you're done.
Yeah.
Yep.
You all are creating healthy financial habits inside of your church.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which has led to you all having a church debt-free. The building you're in right now, you all paid it off?
We just paid this building off. Yep, the building we're in now. We just acquired a new property, 28,000 square foot building on 14 acres in August. And within 2 months of that, in November, 25 acres of land in Chesterfield, Virginia. But in the process of that, paid off our first building, which is 2 buildings on 2.2 acres.
Why would you do that? Why would you pay off the church building?
The word that we all know and love, margin. So, margin is the key. I think if I'll get on this soapbox just a little bit. I think one of the things that we know about the church in general across America is that it depends heavily on tithes and offering. And I think one of the things that Ashley's wisdom and our partnership helped us to understand, and kind of the entrepreneurship muscle that grew over the years and exposure, was like, hey, why is that the case? Why is it that we're one of the only organizations in the world that depends solely on one way of doing it? And so a couple of things that we did that were really important in the inception when we first got a building. We said from the beginning, hey, we're going to focus on the 167. So the hour we gather on Sundays is great. It's the other 167 hours of the week that we actually want to ensure that people can get benefits from being a part of this house and this place. So both of our facilities are designed so that they're functional throughout the week. Nothing has been done or renovated in such a way that its only value is Sunday morning. What that enables us to do with now this new margin at both buildings, we have about 6 to 7 tenants. We have a 3-year partnership with the YMCA Greater Richmond that's in our building. We have another child development center in our newest facility. We have a bank, a community bank that's in one of our facilities. But in short, about 60% of our mortgage is covered by way of that revenue. And so what it allows us to do is truly, one, not pressure people.
Yep.
Right? Because we're so dependent on their giving.
Yep.
We really mean it when we say we don't want something from you, we want something for you.
Yes.
Because we don't have that pressure. Certainly trying to build on 25 acres and all the things we're going to do, we're going to need people to be partners.
Yeah.
But we don't feel pressured that same way. And what it enables us to do, I think, is create a financial plan for people that doesn't mean that they have to do something that is bad financial practice.
Yeah.
We have the time to walk them through it. So Ashley and one of our other members who helped as a finance professional started a free financial literacy program that is to date, and we have some amazing volunteers in our church, Ron Stokes and so many others, who basically have helped people pay off more than $3 million in debt collectively as a community. And that budget bootcamp class is completely free, happens several times a year. so that people can not just hear a series, but find the systems, find the strategies, and the support.
Yeah.
Like free financial coaching and counseling so that they can get to what God really has for them.
This man said 60% of our mortgage is taken care of so that we could be a blessing. I pay attention to everything, right? And my little sister Sierra, she did offering, and her mention, she maybe a minute and mentioning offering. I was like, is this a black church? I said, is this a black church?
Yeah.
I'm literally, because they black.
Yep.
We
Very black.
We are.
Very black.
Very black.
Right.
Yeah.
The majority of black churches will spend 20, 30 minutes on raising an offering. And it goes to show that they're depending on the tithes and offerings.
Yeah.
And you all are saying, hey, yes, we want your tithes and offerings, but we want it because we want you to be blessed.
Yeah.
Right? But God got us. We got a strategy on how to make sure that these doors stay open. Because we're using the entrepreneurship and the business model. But it's like I was like, that was a minute. Wow. Have y'all always been that way?
I think we've always been that way. I think for us, it was all about teaching the principles.
Yep.
And we're going to show you through our practices that this is real, this is authentic, and that we want something for you. We don't want something from you.
Yeah.
And so I think it's been from the start for us. Like, we've been in the places where it has felt uncomfortable, like the ask has felt uncomfortable, and sometimes not even pure. But I think for us, it was like, if we teach these principles, like, it goes beyond TLC, it goes beyond our church. It goes out into the community. It goes out to our children. So we also are teaching classes for our children too. Because it's one thing for the adults to learn it, but then if you go home and your kid's still trying to figure out what's the new you, like what's going on. So now it's important to have those conversations on a child level as well. And so it's worked for us. It's worked. And I think it's been to the point you talked about earlier with other churches. I've been able to go in to see other churches and I'm like, man, like the simple practices of stewardship or the conversation of stewardship, it goes a very long way. But often, especially in church, the conversation of finances is so hard to, especially on a Sunday morning platform. It's like, you talking about finances on a Sunday? It's a tough thing to get through. It's a barrier, even for the speakers who are coming. I don't know if you felt that even on Sunday, but it's like, whoo, do y'all want to hear this or not? And it's necessary, but there is a barrier that you have to press through. But we've learned that when we build out the principles and show people and model it for them, it works.
Can I just I want to honor you in this. So when Ashley was working at the church, she was our stewardship director.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that people are experiencing in our church is, we always hear in church, what comes from the head is on the house. I think that's true of every form. You talked about the data in the beginning of pastors who are financially stressed and pastors who don't have the financial literacy and pastors who are projecting a lifestyle that their resources can't always support and all of these different things. And I think one of the things that was a gift is the journey we've been on together. You said it earlier. Number one, you came in from the beginning and said, this is a part of who I am. And because it is something that I bring to the table, I don't have to become something I'm not. I think what many churches would have done is been like, I got to try to become something I'm not. So I'm going to be the first lady who sing a solo before the sermon. She's never been that.
You don't want that.
Right? Or I got to be this or I got to be that. And what I appreciate so much, and I think our people have appreciated so much, is that Ashley said, this is who I am. And people needed who she was. I think also we were not afraid to take people on the journey with us.
Come on.
So we didn't feel like if you see the real us, you can't follow.
Wow.
And I think because we were not, again, living in shame and hiding that journey, I heard a mentor say one time, whatever you hide can't heal. So we have even leaders who are like, I'm not gonna sit in the class even though I need the content, right? When you came and taught the Saturday workshop, I was like, man, like debt freedom, cool. That was like the first section. I was like, cool, we kinda got that. But that second section, when you start talking about investing and you started putting stuff up, I was like, oh, cool, we ain't thought about that. We need to have that conversation. Because we never stopped learning. And so I think really just the thing I would also say is like, that was a huge part of the journey of like being vulnerable and saying, that we're inviting you into our journey as well. But then also showing people what's possible on the other side.
And showing people where our money is going. that I think that was big for our church. Like people, they want to know
Yeah.
where's my money going? And for us, our generosity is a big thing. And so outreach, being able to give back to other churches, being able to give back to our community, I think that's what draws people to come to our church, because it's like, I can trust where this money is going.
I'm curious, and I'm trying to be careful with my words. I like to be sensitive here, because I don't want to sound like I'm attacking the church or attacking the pastors. But I do believe that the church as a whole, the church community as a whole, we could do better at teaching biblical stewardship.
Absolutely.
Right? Because when I hear that you were the stewardship pastor, one of my goals is I want to do that for like a church or two.
Okay.
And be a stewardship pastor. But I don't want to talk about a building campaign.
Absolutely. Yep.
I want to go in there and teach stewardship at home.
Yeah.
How do you get good at home? Because with a lot of pastors, and I've had this conversation with some pastors, white pastors love it. They've already asked me to come in. Black pastors haven't. Because I think a lot of times we're so stressed with, I need more money to pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
I need more money to pay the bills. I'm like, man, listen, if you were to bring in a stewardship pastor and to let him to just focus on one Saturday every month teaching a financial literacy course.
Do wonders.
One Saturday every month. If it's not a financial literacy course, it could be an entrepreneurship course. It could be a tax course. It could be something. You get them right at home. When people know that you care about them,
Yes.
and when they get right financially, they're coming to the church to sow that seed. Like they're not skipping a beat, right? Because it's like, wow, my church helped me get here. I'm curious, Pastor Vernon, you've been in this ministry longer than me in the ministry perspective, senior pastoring perspective. Why is it important for you to help y'all's members get good at home?
Yeah. I think one, I mean, you said something that's super important. You know, we think about how resources always come into the house for the house.
Yes.
And when I say the house, you know, church cliche, black church cliche, the church.
Facts.
Let's be clear. I think one of the things we've done is mismanage the assignment. I'm gonna get in some trouble when I say this, but I want to be clear. God never told us to try to pressure people to build his house. Can't find that in scripture. He only asked us to help his sheep, to help his people become the best version of themselves that they can be.
That's so good.
He takes care of his house.
Yes, sir.
Now, it is still our responsibility to teach his principles.
Yes, sir.
And I think his principles will usher people to want to, sow into his house.
Yes.
But that's not the pressure we're called to wear.
Wow.
If you're in a church that you can't afford or people don't give farther, you might need to ask, did you get something that was beyond your means?
Wow.
Right? No different than when people personally buy a house and end up house poor.
Yeah.
I think we do the same thing. Like we do something that may be beyond what the financial projection said. And now we put pressure on people when the goal was never for us to pressure people to build buildings. The original word for church in the Greek is ekklesia. It is the called out ones. It is the people. It was never an address. I tell our church all the time, we don't have addresses, we have assignments. So wherever God plants us, it's for an assignment. The assignment is to people.
Yes.
So I think, one, we gotta restore the heart and the covenant we have with God to say the mission is still the people. And if the people aren't flourishing, we failed, even if we have a good building. A good building is not what God smiles on. Healthy people is what God smiles on.
Yes, sir.
And I think God is looking at a lot of us as leaders saying, you think I'm proud and really I'm disappointed. Because you love to bring your pastors through for the tour, but your people are suffering because you taught them how to build this, but you didn't tell them how to build their own legacy, right? I think that's the facts. And I think that's what we got to get back to.
And that's why if y'all are in Richmond, Virginia, y'all need to be at the Life Church. This man just said, you're the assignment.
You're the assignment.
You are the assignment.
Yeah. I think also, I'll just say this lastly, I would encourage pastors and leaders watching this, and I don't know how many of your audiences, but anybody, I mean, just who's part of church, like think about the other ways in which you can empower people and live an example. I saw this statistic recently. Churches in Virginia, specifically where we are, own about 74,000 acres of land that could be repurposed, reused for affordable housing, for community programming, for outreach and recreation, In other words, we have a footprint that could have influence if we could ever see ourselves as more than a Sunday activity.
Bro.
And so I think that's another way for us to think about empowering people. Like, your building is not just set up for you to get an audience on Sunday.
Bro.
It's an assignment.
Bro, you teaching. That's one of the main reasons why I went back to school. So I'm getting my executive MBA with a concentration in church economics of how I can go in and help churches see more than Sunday to where their mortgages is taken care of, but other business ventures, to where on Sundays they can spend a minute on just raising offering and just focus on the purpose, the assignment. And if we only get in $15,000 this Sunday, that's cool. That's already taken care of, right? How do we help people? But here's my thing. I think if you get that happening, we really get back to the assignment, like you said, to where it's like, hey, we're going to help families become stronger and better. We're going to help marriages last longer. We're going to help families build legacy and wealth. We're going to focus on finances, right? We're going to help you grow spiritually. Like, really, not just know how to shout and say the right things, but no, are you growing and seeing a difference in your spiritual life? If we can get back to that, the money is going to take care of itself.
Take care of itself.
You'll raise more money without even trying because you have healthier people. And healthier people know, I got to get my tithe. I got to bring my tithe to the storehouse that's feeding me. You know what, man? My pastor said he just bought some land. Hey, pastor, here you go. Here go $25,000. And you didn't have to ask for nothing. But the problem is the church, we can't focus on all those things. We can't build a system and a structure and curriculum and strategies to really help these families grow. And so we tend to focus on the two main things in church, well, three main things, especially within the Black church. And I totally understand why, but I wish there was a way we can do more. Preaching, you got to be a preacher. You need to know how to hoop us, holler at us, shout us, make us feel good. Right? And then two, music. If the music is not good in the Black church,
they're out of there.
You're out. Right? And then three, you got to know how to raise a good offering. I've had some pastors call me and say, Anthony, I want you to come in and teach, but I need you to raise a special offering. And I'm like,
we weren't one of those churches, by the way.
You were not. And it's not the majority of churches that I go to. It's not. But there have been a few that I've had to turn down. Because I'm like, that's not my assignment. And I'm not going to raise an offering that God has not told me to raise. Now, have I been on the pulpit and I felt something in me that says, man, there's entrepreneurs and you need to sow into good ground? I have done that before. But I'm not a prophet. I don't. That ain't my assignment. So I'm not going to do that if I don't hear that because you told me to raise an offering. Now what I'm doing is I'm misleading the people that God has called me to help you raise an offering or to help you make payroll. And if you got to do that, that means you need to go back to your budget of the church and go back to the strategy of what you're doing. And that is some of the reasons why pastors will not bring me in, because I've learned when they hear the truth, some of them don't really like the truth. And that's why I wanted y'all on the show, because man, you all are doing it at home and you're doing it at the church. And I saw the fruit of that on that Saturday. I mean, when I walked out there and I said, whoa, this is for real. This is 500 plus people. And if I would have pushed it on my show, I know y'all would have came out. I ain't push it. I'm glad we didn't push it because we would have had no room. And I'm like, this is amazing, but it's because of the fruit. It's because they've watched you all go through it yourself. They've heard your testimony. You and the other young man that's doing amazing things over there with y'all's boot camp, y'all put together boot camp to help them. So it's like, wait, we can trust them. If they can do it, so can I. And I just want to say, man, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for what y'all are doing for the kingdom. Thank you for your heart to help people grow spiritually, and help them grow financially, to help them grow with their marriages. And bro, even from man to man, you just taught me something. We got to set aside that pride. because you made a valid point. Michael Jordan was a baller those first 2 years.
No question.
You could not stop Michael Jordan.
Yep.
That man crossovers in between his legs going by. He was sick.
Yeah.
But he didn't win a championship.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until he said, yo, I have to partner.
Yeah.
I got to partner with Pippen, with Rodman, with Kurt. Like, I got to part. When he said, I'm going to be a team player,
Yes.
that's when he won.
Yeah.
But here's the truth. He was still Michael Jordan.
Still Michael Jordan. The greatest of all time.
The greatest.
And I'd love for your viewers to make sure they know that.
No.
He is the greatest
I respect
of all time.
I respect LeBron James. I respect LeBron James, right?
do too.
But we didn't grow up in LeBron James' era. We watched him grow up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But in my era, for Anthony ONeal, bro, listen, we would record the game on VHS.
Yes, sir.
Because we had church.
Mm-hmm.
And we would not turn on the radio because my dad didn't want to hear the game. So we'll go home and rewind the game with the TV off. Just so we can watch it when they've already won.
Yep.
Just so we can see what
You gotta
dunk
see it.
did Jordan do on these jokers.
I'm just saying, man.
So for me, Michael Jordan will be the greatest of all time, but I respect the gift that LeBron James has.
Absolutely.
Because LeBron James, to me, is more of a family man than Michael Jordan.
He is.
You know what I'm saying?
He is, yeah.
I can't say he's more of a businessman than Michael Jordan, because Michael Jordan has built a huge business that is, his net worth is bigger. But for LeBron's age and season, we got to give him credit on to be the very first basketball player to become a net worth billionaire. I'm a money guy, right?
Yeah.
But on the court,
I'm just saying.
like, we know Pippen, Kerr, Rodman because of Jordan.
For sure.
I don't know nobody. We can't even say Kyrie is better because of LeBron. He hasn't played with him. Like, Kyrie's a beast, but you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We way off subject. I'm sorry, y'all.
Y'all want to continue the conversation? We'll keep it going.
Don't send it to me.
I got you. But man, listen, y'all. Pastor Vernon and Ashley Gordon are based out of Richmond, Virginia. They also just launched an amazing church here in the DMV area. They have an amazing team, and they are growing, extremely fast. If you're in the Richmond, Virginia area, hey, stop by their church, check them out. 3 services, 8 a.m., 10:30,
8:30,
10:15,
10:15,
12.
12. And I definitely want to tell you this: get there early for parking, because they're just jam packed, especially for those first 2 services. And they even have a cohort of their boot camp, their financial boot camp, starting here soon. And so definitely check it out. Are visitors open to the boot camp?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Man, check it out, you guys, because it is an amazing church. My assignment is to help you, but then also connect you with the house that will cover you, because YouTubers can't cover you.
Yeah.
Podcasters can't cover you. Okay? So watching Pastor Vernon, watching Pastor Stephen, watching Mike Todd on YouTube is not a covering. You're just listening to a podcast about a scripture in the Bible. Go to a place to get connected with the community that will love you, that will embrace you, that will cover you, that will pray for you, that will meet someone that to where when you get married, to where if something happens, they'll drive 2 hours and sit in a room and make sure that your marriage doesn't fumble because of something as small as this. And while we may think it's big, but God is saying that's small.
Yeah.
We could have got through that, but if you don't have the covering, the community, man, it's going to be difficult. I can't wait to get married. I'm just gonna call Pastor Vernon and Ash. Hey, listen, we going through an argument. Y'all ain't gonna drive 2 hours for me. I'm only an hour and a half down the road. So we're gonna drop all their information, the church's information, their Instagram channels. Y'all check it out. I promise you, it will be a blessing. All right. So we'll love you. See you in the next show. Peace out.